Hey, how's it going, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Johnny. In today's video, we are going to be reviewing the Sony 42A90K OLED TV or monitor. The reason I say monitor is because a lot of people are using OLED TVs as a monitor replacement for their computer monitors. They have been pretty good in performance, so it's safe to say that a lot of these TVs can actually be used as a PC monitor for productivity, editing, and gaming on your PC. The reason why is because these TVs have a max refresh rate of 120 hertz, and they made it a little bit smaller where the PPI looks a little bit better on the 42-inch, and of course they are 4K in resolution, so it's pretty good for typical use for PCs. So we're going to see some of the good pros, and I'm going to mention some of the cons of what I think about this TV when it comes to using as a PC productivity thing. Going over some of the specifications of this OLED panel, it is a 120 hertz, so that means you'll be able to game 120 FPS on your consoles or on your PC with VRR support and as well as G-Sync support on the PC. It also has the Android Google TV OS system, which personally I think it's one of the best systems in the market for a television. It also has four 2.1 HDMI input, so you can put a lot of HDMIs. Unfortunately, it does not have DisplayPort as it is not a fully dedicated monitor. It is more of a television. One thing that I did like about this TV is that it has a backlight remote, which in the dark you can actually see what buttons you're actually pressing on the controller. And as you know, a lot of gaming PCs monitors do not have any type of controller, but it just makes it easier to navigate through the menu when you're changing the settings. In my main setup, I usually use three different monitors from Alienware, and I decided to actually make this my fourth monitor, which I will personally use it mainly for gaming on PC gaming, when I connect my HDMI to the 2.1 HDMI input onto the Sony 4K OLED television. I also do some productivity, but we will go ahead and talk about that later on in the video. Before I start talking about my PC usage with this monitor, I have to mention the Android OS, and I think it is a fantastic OS that every smart television should have. In my opinion, it's better than the LG OS and as well as the Samsung OS. The reason why is because Android OS, you can install several different apps and even third-party apps onto the Android OS, and it makes it a really great experience when it comes to viewing entertainment, so different movies and different stuff that you want to watch on the television. I think the OS is the best. Also, one thing that I have to mention, that it runs really smooth on these OLED panels. I believe the processor is a little bit faster than the standard Sony televisions that they sell. So you shouldn't have to worry about anything in terms of the speed or performance in the Android OS. It runs really smooth when the OLED panels are being used with the OS on this system because they have better processors, I would assume. I went and hooked up the monitor into my gaming PC. Make sure that you have a HDMI 2.1 because if you have a worser HDMI, it might not even display on the screen. So make sure you have that HDMI 2.1. That way you can get the best quality and be able to actually enable the television to work with 120 FPS with your gaming PC. Also, make sure to change the settings and enhance the settings where you can actually put VRR on your television. That way you can enable G-Sync in your settings. I definitely recommend that if you're going to be using it for gaming on the PC side of things. So if you do PC gaming, this is definitely a feature you don't want to miss out. You may want to go ahead and put auto HDR as well, and you might want to adjust the brightness on there so you can make it more brighter, so you can get more colors and brightness when you're playing with your PC gaming. Now that is personally up to your personal preference on what you want to do when it comes to the settings of the brightness. I went ahead and opened up my editing software that I do to edit videos, and I have to say you do get a lot of space on your timeline where you can put your different clips when you're editing a video. So it might be a personal preference if you want to do editing. I can definitely see it being a good software where you can actually see the colors in the video and being able to actually do edits the way you want to do it in your video, because it is an OLED monitor and it's giving you the best quality in a panel when it comes to editing a video. Honestly, while testing out the 42-inch TV for productivity and editing videos, it didn't really feel that awkward when I was using it. And the reason why is because my desk is pretty far away from my mouse and keyboard, and I could see everything on the screen, and I didn't really have to tilt my eyes in a different direction in order to see different stuff on the screen. So one thing I do highly recommend is that you have a pretty good space between you and your desk when it comes to doing productivity or editing, because if you're too close, it's gonna feel a little bit awkward, I would say. But once you're further away, it actually pretty feels pretty natural. One thing that I want to mention is that you're probably watching it on my editing software, that there is a lot of reflections of my three monitors in the back. Yes, it does tend to reflect a lot because it has a glossy finish, but if you're in a dark environment, you're really not going to notice anything of the reflections, to be honest. And depending on the content that you're doing on your PC, like while gaming, you're not going to notice that many reflections, or you might not even notice them at all. It all really depends on what you're doing on the computer. I personally would sometimes shut down my monitors in the back, even though they were not really doing that much reflection. But to get better quality, I definitely recommend you be in a very dark room if you don't want to get those reflections. But you get used to it, to be honest, because you can see everything on the screen. It's still a bright screen that you can see in the daylight. It can be annoying to some people, but to me personally, I've gotten used to it. Even though there's reflections in this room, I don't have it completely darked out. I still had a really good experience while using it even during the daytime. Now I went ahead and moved on to the gaming part of the monitor, using it with my PC. And I have to say, it is definitely giving me the best quality image ever that I have ever used in a monitor or even television. And that's because the OLED panel obviously gives you those vibrant colors. It gives you everything that's perfect in terms of image quality. It's one of the highest rated panels out there that you can get for a television and even a gaming monitor that are being released. So there's no surprise that OLED is going to outbeat every other gaming computer monitor, in my opinion, in terms of image quality when it comes to the screen. Now, one thing that I had to mention, I did not get any screen tearing, and that's thanks to the VRR feature, which allows me to use G-Sync on this monitor. So that's one of the things that is a really important feature for this monitor, in my opinion, especially if you're going to be playing games on here. I wouldn't recommend it for competitive. I still think that competitive monitors, for the smaller monitors with the 27-inch, are better for that kind of stuff. But for story games and different stuff like that, it is a perfect monitor for gaming as well. And as well, you don't really feel any lag or any that much input latency. It just runs smooth. So I have to say I had a really good overall experience. I do, however, have to mention one thing, that even though I adjusted the HDR to the highest brightness on the monitor, when you put VRR with this Sony monitor, you're kind of limited in terms of brightness. You can't actually change the pictures or anything. Once VRR is enabled, it's just enabled in that mode, and sometimes I feel like the brightness gets a bit dimmed. You can, however, fix this issue by disabling VRR and not using G-Sync on the monitor. And trust me, I did notice a little bit of a difference when I disabled VRR in terms of the brightness. I started up a game and I felt like it was more brighter than what I was actually seeing on the screen previously with VRR or G-Sync enabled. The television, unfortunately, when you have it enabled, you cannot change the settings on the color or picture images. You can't adjust it to the way you want with VRR. So I disabled it, and I think it did give me a little bit of increase in terms of brightness. Not too much of a difference, but for some people, it might be some stuff where they nitpick a lot if they want to get the most color vibrant games out there. You might want to disable it. If your PC is strong, you really don't have to worry about that screen tearing, because usually it will get all the frames in and it will sync it in with 120 FPS. But VRR is definitely a useful feature when it comes to using on these monitors, because if you have low frames that drop all the time, you won't notice it with VRR. But in general, in PC gaming, if you have a strong PC, that's really something that you shouldn't really worry about too much. But I just wanted to mention it. Disabling VRR sometimes allow you to make the screen. Now we're going to be talking about burn-in, and will you eventually get burn-in? So I have seen several different reports online from people who have this monitor or the LG C2, which is the same panel, who have mentioned that they have gotten burn-in while using it as a PC productivity monitor. But I also see a huge amount of people who have not gotten burn-in and they've been using it as a productivity monitor. Now, I have to mention that if you take care of your monitor and you put a screensaver every 5 minutes, you should be good. You turn it off while you're not using it or doing any type of productivity, I think you will be good for the most part. Now, for my scenario, it's going to be a little bit limited if I see burn-in. I own another LG television, which I strictly use for entertainment and gaming. It has a lot of hours that I leave it on. I haven't gotten burn-in that television at all. And I'm pretty sure if you do a lot of gaming or stuff like that from your PC to your OLED monitor, you're probably not going to be seeing burn-in a very long time. Now, if you're a productivity user, there's suggestions out there from several people to hide your taskbar, put a moving wallpaper on your computer that moves constantly and changes colors, put it every 5 minutes to go into rest mode or turn off itself. That way it can prevent burn-in. So I've owned two other televisions that are OLED strictly for watching content and stuff. And to be honest, I haven't really noticed a burn-in neither of those televisions. I think these new OLED monitors have too many safety prevention measures that isn't really going to cost you to get burn-in my opinion. But it's always good to be a little bit precautious. Many people say that you have to do too much precautions on the OLED monitors or OLED televisions, but in reality, it's not really that's not really the case. I mean, if you just go ahead and turn it off, it's really not that hard. But if you're using it as a computer thing, I definitely recommend to change the setting to go into rest mode after 5 minutes, and you should be fine. For the most part, I don't think you'll be getting OLED burn-ins or anything like that, as long as you take care of it a little bit better. But like if you're using this as a gaming strictly monitor, as I mentioned before, you're gonna be 100% fine. You're not gonna see burn-in a long time, I'm sure of it. Now, one other thing that I wanted to talk about was the design of the monitor, how it looks. In paper, it does look pretty nice. People do like the design of the Sony televisions, how their stand and everything is. In my opinion, it doesn't really look that good. I prefer the designs in other monitors or gaming PC monitors. I just feel like it has a better design. But however, you can rectify these situations where you can have your setup look really clean if you just mount it onto your wall, and then have it at a really good distance from the monitoring viewing distance. So you should be good in that terms. But I don't really like the stand. I've seen a lot of people say that the Sony one stand looks nice or the back looks nice. I personally think it's kind of a pretty bad design. I've seen some more thinner televisions before, and I just don't like the stand. I personally, it is my opinion. I know that people are probably going to disagree with me, but I just feel like there's been other better stands on televisions. So I think the best scenario, if you're going to be using it for your PC, if you can wall mount it, that would be really awesome. And then you can have all your other monitors as well if you have other monitors on your site as well. It's not the worst, but I just feel that this is better mounted if you can, if you have the option. Obviously, I don't have it mounted, but if you have the option, go ahead and mount it. It'll definitely make your setup look even more clean. I feel like the stand just doesn't look good to me though. Now I'm going to be giving my final opinion and thoughts about this monitor, and do I recommend this Sony television monitor. I have to say that I do recommend it if you do not have a second monitor in your setup or want to add a second monitor. A OLED television definitely will be a great option for a second monitor that you can put in your setup. Even if you have three monitors already in your setup, you can use it as your fourth one strictly for gaming. In my opinion, this monitor shines a lot when it comes to gaming. You're gonna get the best picture image quality when it comes to gaming, in my opinion. Now, I wouldn't recommend this monitor so much for productivity. I know there's a lot of people who are going to use it for productivity. There's a whole community of people out there who actually have decided to make the switch over to this monitor for productivity. I totally understand their reasoning. At the time, there was only this OLED monitors in 42 inches that were the smallest form factor that you could get in order to edit. But now we're in 2023 and there is a lot of different monitors that have came out already that are way smaller and they just feel better for PC video productivity or editing, and I think they have better features as well that will reduce burn-in. In my opinion, if you want to get this 42 inch, I definitely just recommend it for gaming, gaming PC. However, you do have the usage to use it as a productivity. I'm not going to knock it out completely because there's people out there who actually do productivity on this monitor. But in my opinion, there's so many OLEDs, like I mentioned before, that are coming out, smaller form factors. The size definitely has to do with my opinion that when it comes to productivity. Overall, I'm not knocking it though. I had a really great experience. I got it really cheap for 350 on OfferUp, so I honestly couldn't pass up on that deal. I was in the verge of buying myself a monitor that was going to be OLED monitor as well, the newer ones that are coming out. I was thinking about actually buying one of those, but then I found this for 350 and I couldn't beat that deal at all. Typically they retail for 1,200 and then sometimes they can go on sale for $1,800. So it is a little bit more cheaper than the new OLED monitors that are coming out, but I wouldn't say it's extremely cheaper. It's still a pretty expensive monitor or television, whatever you want to call it. It's still pretty high in price, so you might want to go ahead and wait down till the price comes down a little bit, maybe down to 500, or wait a couple of years to upgrade to OLED monitors in the future. But I have to say that if you haven't tried OLED ever, you have to make the switch over at some point because you're going to see a different experience in the image quality. It's like several people say that once you go OLED, you can never go back to the regular quality, which it's some truth to that because I don't know, the quality is just better on OLEDs. And my televisions, I can't go back to the LED screens that much because I just prefer the OLED quality when it comes to gaming or watching television or different TV shows or movies as well. And that's just my opinion, but overall I do recommend it. I don't think, like I said before, I didn't really like the design of the stands, and I felt like in VRR sometimes it kind of dimmed in the color, but that's pretty much all of my negatives about it. Overall, it's a pretty good experience of a monitor, and I would recommend it if you have the budget for it, or if you just get an OLED monitor that are releasing this year. Corsair, LG, and Samsung are all releasing OLED monitors in 2023, so there's a lot of options out there, but I just wanted to go ahead to make an update on what I think about my monitor in 2023, or my Sony television 42 inch. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe.